Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics, brought to you once again by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the AV Club's comic critic and one of the most frequent guests on the podcast. It's Oliver Sava. Thanks for coming on, Oliver.
Thanks for having me, David.
So, are you ready for year 4 of the superhero State of the Union, even though it's just year 3 officially? It is kind of amazing that, like, just every summer we seemingly come back just to see what absurdity Marvel and DC have gotten themselves into lately.
It's that time of the year. This year was real crazy, though. This summer's been wild.
Yeah, between like DC's reorganization and Hickman's like pending, everything, War of the Realms, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot going on, but I do want to start with like the broader topic of just how we're feeling about superheroes, because the past few years, I feel like we've been at best mixed, and at worst, like pretty down on where superheroes were. But and not to spoil my own feelings, but I feel like my own tenor has changed dramatically. Like, how are you feeling about where the world of superheroes are right now, particularly for Marvel and DC?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's nice to be coming off of like a really good event, which was War of the Realms. That was like actually a crossover that kind of stuck the landing and hit all of its marks really well the entire time. So that's leaving me in a good place with Marvel. And then DC, I'm reading a lot of DC books. It's just kind of crazy what's going on over there. At the same time, that's very exciting. So the future is so in flux over there, but they are trying so much, so rapidly that it's a fun ride. Like, it's cool to get to see the Black Label books have been coming out over the course of this past year. They're all really nice looking packages. Quality varies pretty drastically, but at the same time, like, it's been cool to see DC, all these big plans start rolling out the DC Ink and Zoom stuff, although that has now changed too. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. It's an exciting time of change. Don't really know what's on the horizon for Marvel. The X-Men stuff is so exciting. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I actually think one of the big things, the reason why War of the Realms worked as well as it did for me is, and we've talked about this before, one of the problems with a lot of the superhero stuff is it just kind of feels like directionless and it lacks a certain amount of cohesion. And the fact that War of the Realms all built from Jason Aaron's very long run with Thor and kind of, just put all those storylines into one main event that built off those and paid a lot of those story beats off. That was something that I kind of feel like has been missing for a while, especially when it came to events. I don't know how deep you were at this time, but in like the mid-aughts, we had like Civil War, and then it fed into like, I don't know, there was like the whole
Secret Invasion,
and then Dark Reign
around that time.
Yeah, all those different ones. And it was like those events weren't universally great, but it felt like everything was kind of feeding one another, like feeding into something. And War of the Realms was the first event for a bit that felt like organic in that way, and that was building off of something.
Well, it's happening at DC too, because we're seeing kind of this post-rebirth landscape. Because at that time, when you were describing those Marvel events, that's also the time where you have, again, it's varying quality, but you have Identity Crisis, you have Infinite Crisis, you have what's going on. We have 1 year later that happens at that point.
52.
All kinds of stuff just goes down. So, but that was because DC hadn't hit a hard reset for a while, even though Infinite Crisis was kind of a reset. God, so much has happened over the years that it's like, where did that happen? What's going on? Like, what even happened after Infinite Crisis? I have literally no idea. I think that was One Earth, right? That was Prime Earth.
It was when they did, I think it was like, God, it was when they had all the different Earths and then they focused into like New Earth, I want to say.
Okay, no. I have to stop us before we go down this rabbit hole. Let's go on to something new. It's so stupid. We are not talking about which multiple Earths happened at what point in 2008 or whatever. No, let's talk about something.
Oliver, I have terrible news. I actually have Infinite Crisis in my hands right now, so I can look it up while we're talking. But um,
So
well, okay. So when let's talk about DC first, because you were talking about all the changes that are going on, and like I presume what you're talking about effectively is the reorganization, where all the different imprints got kind of smashed into these three different age bands, as they're calling them: DC Kids, which is for 8 to 12-year-olds. 13 plus readers are now DC, and then 17 plus is DC Black Label. So Black Label is no longer an imprint. It's just like a housing mechanism for all comics that are for mature audiences. Although it does seem like the Black Label is still an imprint, because Chris Conroy is kind of like managing that, and we keep getting Black Label books, which are effectively out of continuity stories that are in like larger format productions and everything like that. Like, what when you saw all that, when you heard all that news, it was obviously a big deal. But what was your reaction to that?
I mean, whenever something like that happens, it always comes across as very red flaggy, because that's all corporate stuff happening from Warner Brothers overlords or whatever, and like they're not happy with something that's going on, and poof, Vertigo's gone, and all of these things that they've been working for the past year to establish as different imprints are like now folded into these other things. It was confusing. I don't love Black Label being associated as like a mature readers thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was always the point, but it's like New Frontier is a Black Label book. I don't think that's like a mature readers book. Like, sure, it has some more mature shit, but like I think it's like a 13 plus book easily.
Yeah.
Like, what Kingdom Come is Black Label now or something?
Yeah,
like,
Kingdom Come's Black Label.
Black Label. It's like, these are not All-Star Superman is not a mature readers book. Like, you probably need to be older to understand what's going on, but like, there's nothing in there that like a smart 10-year-old can't read and enjoy.
Right. Yeah, the reprints are one of the most confusing elements of it. And it's funny because I actually looked at Black Label's Wikipedia page last night, just because I was trying to like remember exactly what they've been publishing and what is like labeled under that now. And it's funny looking at it because there was like three distinct segments. There was Black Label itself, like the, Superman Year One, Batman Damned, et cetera, et cetera. And then there was Hill House, which is Black Label, but it's also like Hill House, which is an imprint for Joe Hill. And then it was these reprints, which is like All-Star Superman, Kingdom Come, DC The New Frontier, all those different books. And that's the thing that confuses me about the age bands in terms of like that being something meaningful, is like Vertigo.
Where's Young Animal falling?
I have no idea. And the funny thing is when this all came out, Dan DiDio said basically like, we're going to decide where these books exist on a case-by-case basis, basically. So some Young Animal might be 17 plus and some might be 13 plus. I don't even know.
See, this is all dumb. This is dumb, and I don't like it. And it seems overly complicated. I mean, I don't know.
But I mean, is it ultimately meaningful though? Because it's like, if you're gonna like a Young Animal comic, you're probably gonna buy it no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just make them all DC comics.
Yeah,
like that's basically what Marvel does. Marvel doesn't really have different lines. Like, they don't do Max really anymore, right? Are there still Max comics? So like, they don't really. I guess they have like Marvel Adventures, but do they still do that, or is that now folded over to the Marvel Action books at IDW?
I think that's mostly that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, just have them all be DC Comics or something, and put a stamp on the cover, parental advisory or whatever.
Honestly, like, I think really like what they're talking about, these age bands, is honestly like more of like an internal mechanism where it's like, this is what librarians need to look at to know what is for what audience, or this is what bookstores need to know. And I think their mistake was even presenting this as a big reorganization instead of just something where it's like an internal structure, because frankly, it's like, I am excited by Wonder Comics to the point where I am buying all Wonder Comics because that name means something to me now, in the way that Vertigo once meant something to me. Obviously, it's a hugely different imprint, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, like, all four Wonder Comics books, like Young Justice, which I thought was going to be my favorite book from the line, is my least favorite book from the line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of awesome that Bendis came in and created something that is already meaningful to me as a reader. But if you just say that this is a DC book, it loses some of its power. So I think that I almost would have used it as like a use the imprint still for external and use like the age bands internally. But it was the fact that they made them an external thing that kind of confused matters a bit.
So is Wonder Comics its own separate imprint still, or is that going to be a DC thing?
Well, because all we've seen so far is that the Hill House Comics books, which say DC Black Label, and then underneath it says Hill House Comics. So it's both.
I mean, whatever. This is a thing that's like, it's an editorial thing. It's a publishing thing. Like, I'm far more interested in like what the creative teams for these things are. And I mean, Hill House looked interesting. It was a lot of names that I didn't know. So like that's always fun. Like it'll be me checking out books by creators that I don't really know much about. Like I like Joe Hill, at least in terms of comics. So I'm definitely excited for that. But that's not superhero.
Yeah.
And in terms of what's going on with main DC stuff, man, the Justice League is a tough nut to crack.
In terms of what? Like, you just don't know how you feel about it?
And just in terms of the Justice League as a team, I don't know. Like, I can't really... When was the last time I really enjoyed a Justice League book? Because I guess I started... I liked Metal, but the Scott Snyder run right now is not really doing it for me. So, I mean, it's Snyder and Tynion at this point. So, yeah, I don't know. We can get into that a little later, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing I'd like to jump into now is like, we talked about this over Twitter DM, and there's like a really interesting place right now where it seems like we've kind of found like the architects again for each of the publishers. We have like on the DC side, you have like Tom King, you have Scott Snyder, and you have Brian Michael Bendis, and then on Marvel you have Jason Aaron, Donny Cates, and Al Ewing, and you know each of those sides have their own pluses and minuses. But I don't know. I mean, like, how are you feeling about those architects? Do you feel? I mean, are they working for you? It sounds like Snyder is not totally, but at the same time, I think you're with me. Like, Batman Last Night on Earth is actually a really great book. Like, I really enjoyed that. That's like the one Black Label book that I was like, yeah, this is awesome. This is really good.
I think that Snyder is best when he's in his own little corner. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how well Snyder and honestly King, how well they function as architects of a larger universe and like shaping stories. Because I mean, if we look at King, in terms of big universe shaping stuff, Heroes in Crisis, and I thought that book sucked. Mm-hmm. So I don't like that at all. And then over at Batman, I don't know. I'm not reading too many Batman books right now. I catch up, like, but I'm like 3 issues behind on the main Batman book. Mm-hmm. Like Nightwing. I feel like the Nightwing stuff is like, I don't know if King suggested that or if editorial wanted that, but it feels like a thing that it's a thing that originated in Batman, that twist. So I'm assuming that he wanted that to happen. And if that's kind of the architecture that we get from King is so Brad Meltzer-esque.
Are you talking about the change in identity or whatever?
Yeah. The whole amnesia and getting shot and stuff. It's like in general, like I feel like when now I'm starting to think about like what defines these people as architects. Like, for King, it's always like trauma. Mm-hmm. Like that's what all of his stories are built on. And with Heroes in Crisis, when he had the opportunity to play with like the whole sandbox, the pieces did not fit at all.
Yeah.
Like it didn't work for me at all. And then with Snyder's a little bit of a tougher nut to crack because I feel like he jumps around so often. So much of Justice League feels kind of Morrison light to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and of these three that you named for DC, Bendis is the one that I'm most enjoying.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that's just because he brings that Marvel point of view,
Right.
which is so much more street level, like kind of interior character focused, and it's really really fun. Like I'm reading all those Bendis books. Batman Universe, did you read it yet?
I have not. I decided I was going to wait for trade on that one.
So I got like I was blessed. Clark at DC printed out like the first 9 issues and gave it to me at C2E2
Mm-hmm.
in like a legit computer paper, and I was reading it and I was like, this is so freaking good. It's such a fun book, and yeah, like those Bendis books are just kind of killing it right now, and it seems like he's coming from having all this experience building this giant Marvel structure. Like Bendis's work at Marvel kind of defined so much of what the MCU did, defined so much like tone stuff, and he's coming into DC with really big ideas, and DC's letting him take control and execute them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see what he does with the Legion. Really excited.
Mm-hmm.
Putting Ryan Sook on that book. Oh God, he's so good. Like those issues of Action Comics were so freaking good. Like they were just so good, and there were just like individual pages that were like a moment that was just awesome. And Bendis is using like the comic form in a really fun way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's being, out of these 3 guys, he's also being like the most inventive. King, you're gonna get a lot of 9-panel grid for the most part. Like he sticks to those grids pretty hardcore. He loves, alternating between a splash page and a grid page. Like, but Bendis, I'm way more surprised by what he does. I've noticed that he lets artists like play around with 2-page splashes a lot, and it changes the reading experience. It makes Bendis books feel like Bendis books in a way. Like, of course, I'm really worried about Bendis burnout. He has last week he had 5 books.
Did he? Last week he had. Okay, what did he have? He had
last week he had Event Leviathan,
Naomi.
Batman Universe, Naomi, Superman,
and Young Justice. Yeah.
I mean, Batman Universe was a reprint or whatever, but it's still a new book by him.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me on Bendis is, and I wrote about this already, but it's like, I really feel like he's been revitalized by DC. And because I have to admit, like towards the end of his run at Marvel, I was getting a little, I don't know. It just you could feel that Bendis himself was burned out on Bendis almost. It was, and like they were trying to find a place for him and none of it really fit. Like when he got to his Iron Man run, it just kind of felt like he was done. It didn't feel like there was any more rocks for him to turn over there. And when he got to DC, I have to say, like, Action Comics is probably the best Superman comic I've read in, I don't even know how long. Maybe like the best parts of Jeff Johns' stuff. Maybe before then. But I mean, the people they've gotten on that book have, like, I mean, art wise, have in a lot of ways been like also shockingly not DC like. We got a Steve Epting arc that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had Yannick Paquette with Nathan Fairbairn coloring him. We had Ryan Sook, like you said, and I don't know if that's a Bendis influence or if they're just trying to find different people for this. But like
I think Bendis wanted Sook for sure. The fact that he's working on with him again on Legion, that he came in there, he was like, I want Ryan.
Yeah, and
I would too. Holy he's so freaking good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been waiting for Ryan Sook to have a major project interior wise for a long time. I mean, I don't know if the reason why he hasn't is because he's not super fast or what, but I mean, honestly, going back to what you're saying though, it's like you read the Wonder Comics books and they even kind of have some level of interaction between each other because it feels like a lot of the stuff is kind of stemming from Gem World to a certain degree. And then you look at like the way that all this is going to feed, you know, it has fed into like Leviathan, and you look at the way that the Legion stuff's going to happen. It feels very cohesive in a way that DC often doesn't, and I think it's a lot of it comes from the fact that, as you noted, Tom King and Scott Snyder are good writers, but they're not universal writers. Like Tom King, his ideal format, in my opinion, is a 12-issue maxi series that has nothing to do with continuity. I don't know what Snyder's is. Like Snyder, like I've liked he's very hit or miss for me when it comes to his superhero stuff. And it's like they've needed somebody to kind of guide the line. And even Dan DiDio has referenced that in interviews. He says that like they have too many kind of like fiefdoms where it's like, this is the Bendis territory, and this is the Snyder territory, and this is the King territory, and they're all kind of separated. They feel like they definitely need integration in a way that like Marvel doesn't, or that Marvel does have. And you know, like comparing that to Aaron and Cates and Ewing and everybody else, but like primarily those three, it's like I feel like Marvel has taken that vacuum that they were faced with when Bendis left, and they've filled it in probably like the best possible way they can by, you know, giving Aaron more responsibility as the main architect and giving more opportunities for people like, you know, Cates and Ewing and everybody else. And they've really responded to it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like, yeah, I guess Aaron is the main architect of the Marvel stuff. At War of the Realms, like big event, and then he's writing Avengers,
which is actually really good.
Which finally got, like, that first arc was a mess, but it really quickly turned around after that. So, yeah, and then it's interesting. Like Coates, Ta-Nehisi Coates, is also doing really great work at Marvel too. Like, I mean, I always kind of go to the Trinity, so it's like, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. So we have Aaron over at Thor, Ta-Nehisi Coates at Captain America and Black Panther, and then Iron Man, which is Dan Slott. And we don't consider Dan Slott an architect of the Marvel Universe, even though he's writing Iron Man and Fantastic Four.
Right.
Two books that should be totally central, and they are not, which I find very interesting.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, this is going to sound like Slott slander, but I mean, I don't mean it as such. I feel like Slott is like a character actor who's forced into being a star.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, because the best stuff that Slott's ever done, in my opinion, is like stuff like the Great Lakes Avengers and like The Thing run and the stuff he did with She-Hulk. And those are great books, and he's done amazing stuff. I mean, and honestly, like I will stand up for his Spider-Man stuff. I actually thought that his run was really good. Superior Spider-Man was really good in my opinion. He's done a lot of really good stuff. I think he might have been on the book for a little long, but at the same time, like I think he did a great job there. But I don't know if he's like the type of person who should be an architect for a line. He feels like the person who's supposed to give the line life in certain places. And I don't know. I have to admit, I didn't last long in Fantastic Four. I was enjoying Iron Man at first, but then it just kind of felt like it felt zany in a way that I didn't particularly expect out of an Iron Man book. And I was like, I'm going to get out of here because they're in some sort of weird, massively multiplayer online role-playing game, and it's confusing. But yeah, I mean, that does feel kind of like a weakness because Coates, I mean, as you wrote about, is really killing it on Captain America, and his Black Panther stuff. The Space Panther stuff has gone on for a while, but we're starting to get payoff for it, and it's been great throughout. Plus, you've gotten Acuna, and you've gotten Kev Walker, and it's been and Jen Bartel, and it's been just a beautiful book.
Yeah, I really dig Coates' books now, which is nice because I bet if you go back to Superhero States of the Union, I was probably talking about how boring Black Panther was. So he just figured out how to write superhero comics. Like, one of the things that I'm really curious to see how threads from his books come into other things. Because, like, Avengers, like, T'Challa's in he's in Avengers. So,
Right?
like, when does he leave? Like, how does his storyline fit with Avengers? How Immortal Hulk, the most recent issue, I don't know if you're caught up.
Yeah.
Okay, so the most recent issue totally had a huge twist that will affect Captain America really drastically. So, like, I mean,
Oh,
I Yeah.
Yeah.
So I personally just want Immortal Hulk to be the main book of Marvel. Because I mean, I've gone on the record saying that Ewing is Marvel's best writer. He is that primo architect in my mind. He comes with so many ideas. He is so knowledgeable about the past, and he is so good at taking the really interesting nuggets of past stories and kind of blowing them up and using them to create these really fascinating different takes on superheroes. I mean, I love his Avengers run, which is spread out across what 8 different books over 5 years.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Just
but
randomly getting renamed. Ultimates 2. Wait, was it Ultimate Squared?
Ultimate Squared. Great, like really cool book, really fun, like just super strange books. But like Immortal Hulk, he finally has a hit. I don't think he's ever had really a top 10 selling book.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Immortal Hulk debuted in the top 10, but it's built up that momentum because, and I think this is probably the ultimate lesson, it has a consistent creative team with a really clear, like, creative vision for the book, and editorials letting them do cool, crazy shit.
Can I blow your mind for a second about Immortal Hulk?
Do it.
Do you want to know the main reason why it actually blew up to the top 10 hit?
Tell me.
Speculation.
Speculation?
Yep.
About what?
The second issue is worth like $100 on eBay. It's like it's a speculator monster, and because it was like it started really, it started decently because it was like I don't know, I forgot, Legacy, was this Legacy? Shit, I can't even remember.
No, it's Post.
A Fresh Start. Yeah, this was a Fresh Start book, and so apparently it's like print run dropped a lot, and it became this like this word of mouth hit, and it was getting eaten up everywhere. It's in the same way that like Donny Cates' Thanos stuff was, and so like the speculator market like started blowing it up, and it actually, one of the few times you will ever see this, it led to positive gains for the entire book because people actually started reading it because there was so much buzz about it. But I mean, honestly, like it became, I think that a huge part of the reason why it became as big of a hit it was because that speculator buzz leading into readers being like, why are people talking about this book? And they're like, oh my God, this book is amazing.
It's just so good. I want Al Ewing to write every character because he's so good at like delivering those holy shit moments. I really want to see him. Well, I guess he wrote Captain Marvel in Ultimates, and there's some cool stuff with her in there. But like, I would love to see him write like a 5-issue mini or something, put him with a really cool artist, and like, because I like the cool part of Captain Marvel in the movie for me was like, I mean, it wasn't the only cool part, but I really did like seeing her go like Super Saiyan, just destroy everything, crazy, boom. I feel like we don't get that from the Captain Marvel comic, which I am enjoying. Like, I finally like Captain Marvel comics again, but I still kind of want like, I mean, I want what I'm getting from Silver Surfer Black, which is like Trad Moore. Oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I just want that. And I mean, I get that in a completely different way from a book like The Wildstorm, which the art style is totally different, but it has that cool factor. And I feel like Al Ewing is really good at bringing that to whatever book he's on. And a lot of the times that results in really great artwork. Immortal Hulk, it's so clear that Joe Bennett loves what he's drawing on that book. Because he's going ham. That book is crazy. I just love it so much. I was like at a bar last night. People were talking about comics, and somebody asked me what I'm talking about. I was like, Immortal Hulk. It's the only comic I really want to read all the time. Immortal Hulk and Giant Days is leaving, so I'm just going to reread Immortal Hulk.
I have to say, Immortal Hulk, like the thing that really amazes me about that book is like so many of the ideas Ewing brings into it shouldn't work. Like there's so many heat check ideas in there. There was that line a few issues ago where Banner alludes to the fact that maybe he's going to call the Devil Hulk the Maestro, and like that's one of those bolts that's always been in the chamber for the Hulk that they've never really went into since Peter David left. And like for Ewing to do that takes like somebody who has real vision and somebody who has huge balls. And it was kind of when I came across that moment, I was just like, I had to put the comic down. I was just like, good God, I cannot believe this happened. I tweeted about it. Will Moss liked it, and I was just like, I think everybody that's on that book is so on the same page that it's resulting in one of those few books that is just, I don't know. It feels cohesive in a way that like big two books rarely do. Like I know this is kind of a burn on for hire books, but it feels like a creator owned book in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of amazing, they figured out a rotation for the art on it that somehow makes them like that book's coming out more than any other Marvel book, and it's not lacking in quality in any issue.
Yeah, Joe Bennett's really fast. Like
Really
the thing
fast.
is, Joe Bennett, he's doing that, and he's drawing probably 4 issues of the Terrifics a year as well. So like, he's working. But the thing is, he's an artist that is super dependent on his inker, and like he has great inkers on Immortal Hulk. But they do the 2 issues on and then 1 issue off, and that 1 issue off, I feel like they've gotten really good fill-in artists. That Kyle Hotz issue was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I'm really digging that he's back in superhero stuff because he's doing detective right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's a 2-issue Spectre arc. I think it's 2 issues, maybe it's longer, but it's rad. Like his art is just, I like it a lot. It's got a little bit of that like Todd McFarlane 90s-ness, but just, I don't know, a lot tighter. And there's something kind of gross about it, a little Richard Corbin-esque too. So I don't know. God, I love it so much.
Yo, everybody. I want to take a second to talk about my friends at TKO Studios. TKO Studios is a new comic publisher that launched with what the New York Times calls an impressive slate of talent. They publish books by top creators, including Roxane Gay, Jeff Lemire, Garth Ennis, Gabriel Walta, and many more. TKO also does things differently than other publishers. They binge release their books and offer each title in whatever format you most enjoy reading your comics in, whether that's a 6-issue set in a collector's box, trade paperback, or digital download. I'm a single issues guy, so I went that route and I love the collector's box. Even better, all of TKO's first issues are free to read at tkopresents.com right now. So if you're curious, visit tkopresents.com to give them a try or follow at TKO Presents across all social platforms. And if you're a store that's interested in stocking TKO's books, email retailers at tkopresents.com to learn more about one of the best retailer deals in the industry. And now, back to the show. So I have a theory as to why like the architects for Marvel seem to be working a little bit better than the ones at DC, and you know, like they're each of them have their merits, but I kind of feel like Marvel's editors understand the strengths of their writers a little bit better than the editors over at DC. And like I said, not casting aspersions either way, but it's like their Marvel Comics 1000 sounds like an absolutely ridiculous thing, but the fact that they put Al Ewing on there to be the person to tie it all together is like just enough to make me think it might work. And it's like you need some sort of recognition of your talent's strengths. You need like a real like understanding of what works for them and what doesn't to make sure that they get put in the right place to succeed. And I feel like Marvel's got a really good grasp on that right now, outside of Slott, obviously. But I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I would agree for sure. Like, I mean, the big test is going to be X-Men, I think.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen? We know Hickman's on there. And then, I mean, we know we have Hickman, and we know that we have Milligan and Allred. Like, the fact that those are the books that we have. But the fact that is the only X book that we know of that is coming in the Hickman era is so exciting to me. Because that's what, like, X-Force wasn't attached to Morrison and Quitely. Like, those books weren't associated, but it represents like a change in the line for me. That is like, I mean, this is hitting my prime comic book nostalgic period. So like going back to X-Force, going back to New X-Men, like I'm so excited. I can't wait.
So it's almost like the Excellence return. It's representative of a changing in, a change in the way that they're going to be approaching the X-Men in the same way that did once for you. Like it's doing that again.
Like I just can't think about the last time I was this excited for like new X-Men comics.
Yeah.
It's just, ooh, I can't wait.
I gotta say, I really love how they've basically, it's like they've cut an entire country out of their line and just said, "This is you. Just do you." And I mean, like near as we can tell, like Hickman has talked about this. Tom Muller is going to be designing, like they're going to be like design elements throughout the book. There's going to be like all of our favorite Hickmanisms in there, and he's bringing somebody in that doesn't normally work with Marvel to try to make these books their own things. And everything I mean, honestly, like even though it's been a perpetual battle to say literally nothing about what's actually going to happen in these comics. Hickman's interviews have been like astonishingly effective at building up those hype levels because of all the things that he's saying about his approach and the way that he's viewed the successes and failures of the X-Men in the last like 15 years. I mean, just Tom Muller by itself is like, that's enough to make me just maximum hype. But I think the whole thing, I don't know. I like you said, I am as excited for X-Men comics as I have been since, I don't know. I mean, honestly, like as a kid, it's been a bit.
Like the Tom Muller thing is so awesome, and I really want to see all of comics just really realize the value of design. Like I just finished X-Men Grand Design. I didn't mean to say design so close together, but it's the title. But like that book is one guy doing everything. He's writing, drawing, lettering, coloring, doing all of it. He chose the paper, I'm assuming, because that's like not the paper quality of anything else at Marvel. Like he's putting out 40 page issues. Like the publishing schedule was wacky for that book too, but like I totally got it, and it was awesome. Like honestly, I think that they should just give X-Men writers a copy of Grand Design and be like, here's a bunch of history, like find some cool shit in here and explore it, because there's so much there. So I'm so excited for Tom, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Scioli.
Oh, yeah, Scioli, I think it is. Yeah.
Scioli. But yeah, him doing Fantastic Four Grand Design. Ooh, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
That's going to be so good.
I love the grand design idea in general is fantastic because, I don't know, I mean, one of the biggest problems with comics is quite often the history becomes unwieldy. It's like, how do I jump into this comic without knowing the entire history? And then you actually create comics that do that. Like, if you give somebody grand design, it's not going to explain everything. It's not like a perfect device. I have to admit, the ending of the last issue of Extinction, I was just like, I don't remember Extinction Agenda ending like this. But it was also very, like, the way that Piscord like tied it back together was really nice. But I mean, like, the grand design idea is fantastic, and I'm really glad that Marvel has recognized its value, because it easily could have just been a one-off, but they're bringing it back.
Absolutely, and I'm really like, I want to see just who they bring in for some of these books too. Fantastic Four, okay. Like, what are some other characters? Spider-Man, probably.
Yeah.
Like, who would they get for that? I don't know. I mean, I want Daniel Warren Johnson to do something for some of these guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where does Life Story fit in that for you? Because, like, that's also another story that is, like, dramatically different than what we might normally expect from Marvel. And I think it was a bold move, but I really enjoyed it, despite the fact that apparently the illusion of change is a very welcome thing, because, man, Spider-Man's life sucks if it actually plays out.
I mean, I'm not current on Life Story.
Oh.
I think I wish that it had a different art team, honestly. Like, I think that is the perfect book to have an artist that will change their art style for the decades. I don't know if I don't think they wanted to do that, but it's kind of like it feels like a missed creative opportunity for me. And I mean, like, Bagley's fine. Bagley and Darmada, I don't know. I don't think I like that. Darmada's coloring style is so not 60s or 70s. It's like so not retro comics that I feel like a disconnect there.
Sure.
Like it almost becomes a thing where it's like I can't watch that thing that takes place in the 60s because it doesn't have a 60s palette at all.
Right.
And it's not like rendered in a way that feels 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I like the idea of it for sure. Like the idea of the comic, and I'll catch up with it. Like I liked what I had read. It's just that there's a lot of books. I moved on.
Well, okay, so let's talk about it on a broader scale. Like, what, we're excited about Hickman. We're liking, obviously, Immortal Hulk and Captain America and stuff like that. What else has been standing out to you as, like, either trends that you've been really appreciating or comics that are kind of maybe a little bit more under the radar that you've been appreciating?
I want to think about trends. I mean, I've been enjoying G. Willow Wilson's Wonder Woman. It has some inconsistent artwork, but it's a bi-weekly book, so that's what happens. But like, I think it's really fun, and I think that she has a really solid grasp on the character. She does fun stuff with mythology.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. I think, God, just going through all the different books that exist.
For me, I mean, I wouldn't say that he's really under the radar, but I would say that Tom Taylor is probably the person that's impressing me most on a consistent basis. For me, like, honestly, I think there is no way in hell that Deceased should be a comic that works, but it actually works really well. And I've been very much enjoying it. His Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is really good. I mean, it kind of, like, Tom Taylor's quickly become a guy where, I don't know, when I remember when Injustice first started, and I was always just like, I don't know if I want to read like a video game digital comic. And now he's like somebody that I feel that if his name's attached, I'm going to buy it.
Absolutely. And I was that way with Injustice, and I never really read Injustice 1.
Mm-hmm.
But when Injustice 2 came out, I was so into All New Wolverine by that point that I was like, okay, I'm definitely I want to read more Tom Taylor stuff. And got into Injustice 2, and I burned through that book. Like, it is, that is actually the last great Justice League story that I read. He should be writing Justice League, because that book is so good. The tone is, like, it's Injustice, so it's incredibly dark. But he's so good at writing, like, fun comics. That's a big thing with All New Wolverine, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Like, he has a really good sense of humor. And his comics move. They move really quickly. They have a really nice, like, brisk energy. But I don't feel like they're like, slim. Or, like I always feel like I got my money's worth.
Right.
So, yeah.
I feel like he has, I mean, there are obviously different types of writers, but like a lot of the strengths that he has, I think Ewing has. And like in a weird way, it's like, I feel like one of Tom Taylor's greatest strengths is that he can take ideas that are like quintessentially comic booky ridiculous, but he can give them the proper weight that they need. Like that first storyline. Are you reading Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man?
Mm-hmm,
like, so that first storyline where it's like there's a secret city that's like really bright or golden underneath like New York City. That whole thing was just like a completely ridiculous idea, but it worked so well. And it helped a lot that Juan Cabal was just outrageous on that first arc. I mean, he was just unbelievable. But I mean, like that was one of those ideas where it's just like, I don't know why this idea works, but I appreciate Taylor always trying to find new and original takes on that stuff. And it's like a lot of his stuff is building off of what has come before in the same way that Ewing is. I feel like he does it in a lighter side, in a way that's a little bit more fun and like occasionally like heartwarming. Maybe not in the justice side of things, but in a different way than Ewing does. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin for me. And I don't know. I think he's an incredible writer.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I put Tom Taylor and Al Ewing together as well. And the thing is, I don't. Have you read Loki, Agent of Asgard?
No, I have not.
Okay, so get on that because that's where kind of I think Al Ewing first. That's his first big book. That's happening at the same time as Mighty Avengers, but it's first off one book, not 20,000 books.
Is that Lee Garbett?
And that's Lee Garbett.
Yeah, I like Lee Garbett a lot.
It's Lee Garbett, and I want to say Antonio Fabella coloring him. So he's the colorist. There's like a whole school of colorists at Marvel. Marty Gracia's in there, and David Curiel, who are all kind of just like slick, pretty bright, like pretty heavily rendered, but like just solid colorists. And no, that was a good book.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really good book. I actually think I actually like considerably prefer it to the Kieran Gillen Journey into Mystery stuff.
Ooh, that is a very beloved run. That's a heck of a thing. Well, I will have to check it out.
I just like Al Ewing better as a writer.
Sure.
Like, and the thing is, like, that's not because I love Kieran Gillen as a writer, but like Al Ewing is probably my favorite superhero writer right now. Like, he's just total fire. I've loved him for years. I mean, like, I'm a huge Sunspot fan because of him.
Yeah.
Like, I read Claremont X-Men comics. I didn't give a shit about Sunspot. Like, but after reading a bunch of, I don't know, AIM issues of Avengers, it's like, how was I so invested in that comic? Because Al Ewing wrote it, and he fucking killed it.
Yeah. Back to Taylor, though, I do want to say, like, he's a very interesting player in all this because he's, like, the one guy who's not exclusive in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I'm very fascinated by that fact. Like, I'm sure that they've been offering him like exclusivity or something like that, but I think we're kind of better off for him playing both sides because he's doing really good work on both sides. I guess I don't know the pros and cons to an exclusive, so I don't know why he would or wouldn't take the direction or take that, but it doesn't seem like he's lacking for work despite the exclusive.
Well, because he doesn't. I don't think comics is his primary source of income. He's in animation as well.
Sure.
So he's probably making the majority of his income through that. He doesn't have to worry about. And he's in Australia. Do they have healthcare there?
Yeah,
probably.
They do.
What? It's not America, so probably. God. So he's like. He can play both sides. He doesn't have to choose a side.
Yeah.
Which is awesome because he's really good and I wish that more writers were kind of writing both sides. Like now that I'm thinking about it, how many over time have we really had?
Like simultaneously?
That were simultaneous, yeah.
God, not that many. I mean, most of the time they're just kind of in one house or the other. I mean, they right now, like the only person I can think of off the top of my head that has both DC and Marvel projects coming out is they just announced. God, what is that book that like isn't Ryan North writing a?
Yes,
Johnny Constantine with Derek Charm, but a Squirrel Girl is going to be over by then, so he's not really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's funny because he'll still maintain his like one publisher silo. But yeah, I mean, it is really interesting, and we've seen. I know I talked to some retailers who are a little nervous about like like the exclusive wars starting again because we had like, and these weren't even necessarily exclusives, but you had Marquez go to DC probably because of Bendis. Then you had G. Willow Wilson, who you already mentioned. You had Kelly Sue DeConnick. You had Fraction. I mean, even Greg Rucka's back there, and a lot of that feels like Bendis's influence. But
absolutely, those are all like his besties.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like all for the better though. I mean, I'm not reading. DeConnick on Aquaman, but I mean like Fraction on Jimmy Olsen. Like I don't know if you can find a book besides House of X and Powers of X that the internet is more universally excited for than Fraction and Steve Lieber on Jimmy Olsen.
It is fire. It's so good.
You've already read it?
You read it or no? Yeah, I reviewed it already. They sent me an advance review. I was like, I'll review this ahead of time. Sure. I never do advance reviews, but I was like, okay. God, it was so good. Steve Lieber kills it, but I mean, I just missed that Fraction superhero voice, and a lot of fun. But I mean, like Greg Rucka on Lois Lane, that was really, really good too. And I'm actually, like DeConnick on Aquaman is kind of. I like 80% like it.
Hmm.
There's like it's missing something, but I really like what she's doing. There's just like some spark is missing, which I wonder if it's like an ad lib because that first arc is like Amnesiac, Arthur, and it's very Moana, which I liked. It's very much like dealing with like ocean gods and like all these different pantheons, and like I think that she explicitly said Moana was like an influence on her, which is awesome because Moana is a really cool like aquatic adventure. That's exactly what I want.
Hmm.
But there's like some sort of character disconnect. But I'm wondering if now that he has his memories back, and I think he'll be making his way back to Mira and stuff, if that makes it. If that changes like the cohesion of the book. But also, like, I really just want like Emma Rios to do an issue or something.
Hmm.
Like, I like Robson Roach on that book a lot. Like, he is very much in kind of that DC house style, Ivan Rice influence, and it's very pretty, but at the same time, I kind of want to see somebody with like a more ethereal, like art view jump in there, and Emma Rios would be really cool. But she's a little busy.
Yeah.
Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly needs to come out. I need that right now.
It's coming. Was it October? It's coming back.
It's set in Hollywood. I'm so excited.
Man, it has been a bit though. It is. Was it 3 years? Woof.
2 years, 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I do want to say like that. I think that the art that we're talking about. I feel like to a certain degree that is part of the distance that has been created for me as a reader with DC is outside of Action Comics and the imprints. I feel like there very much is still a house style, and maybe you could say the same thing about Marvel. I know a lot of people have talked about how like Immonen's influence feels really heavy right now on Marvel stuff. You look
Don't
at like
hate that.
but I certainly don't hate that. But I mean, you look at like somebody like maybe Pepe Larraz and like RB Silva. They feel like they're kind of coming from like that same school. But I never really feel like it's omnipresent in the same way that it is at DC, where DC feels like even on the books that I like I actually, while it's the lesser of the two, I have enjoyed Superman, the Bendis Superman. And Ivan Rice has done a very good job on that. Brandon Peterson's been, Brandon Peterson, but at the same time, it's like there's like a homogeny there that kind of makes those books feel a little bit less exciting because they don't have like the visual spark that I'm like looking for. And I don't know if that's a me thing or if that's something that's actually happening.
No, I think it's something that's actually happening. Like when I think about like what are the interesting DC art books right now, Martian Manhunter, Riley Rossmo is doing some really, really, really cool stuff on that book. A lot of like really just out there layouts. Have you read any of it?
I have to admit, I read the first issue and I was not overly fond of it. And I was like, I actually really liked Rosmo's art. It just felt, I don't know. There was something that just felt off to it. And I was like, I'm probably going to just come back and read this in trade when it's finished. Like the big 12 issue collection. Cause it felt like something that would work better as a finished edition.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And, I'm kind of losing some of the story threads, so, but I'll probably just read it all the way to the end, in print or in single issues. But at least like in terms of outside the box artwork, that one sticks out to me a lot. I mean, Alex Maleev, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Maleev,
okay.
I think.
Right. I'm gonna assume yes. And I mean, Event Leviathan looks awesome.
Yeah.
That book looks so nice.
Yeah, I mean the opening pages to both of the first and second issues are very atypical from a comic making standpoint because they're all like setting the like location and setting like the environment and the feel and everything like that. And it's really, it's like the both of those issues have been really fascinating. And like I tweeted about this the other day, but like in a lot of ways, Event Leviathan is like really underlining the things that people hate about Bendis. It's like super
Mm-hmm.
decompressed. It is like the characters are very like Batman is even maybe a bit more talky than he normally would be, especially given what we find out that he was feeling about Jason Todd as is in the second issue. And there's like some other things that are like things that people don't enjoy about Bendis, but it really works. And I think a big part of that is how Malieve is handling the atmosphere of that book, because it feels like the paranoia and like the curiosity as to what's going on and trying to explore this, like the detective angle. I'm actually like genuinely invested in finding out who Leviathan is. And like that's something that doesn't like those types of beats are something that I feel like have been missing from superhero comics for a while, like that kind of mystery. And I love it. I think it's great.
Don't get too invested. Bendis has some trouble sticking the landing. I read enough. I read enough Marvel Bendis crossovers to know that sometimes that last chapter really shits the bed. But um,
I'm trying to remember. Did he write Siege? He wrote Siege, didn't he?
yeah, but I thought Siege ended not too bad. That was just like 4 issues. I'm really thinking more back to like kind of like Ultimate miniseries and stuff. Like those always kind of just like ended with a blank. Um, but no, I mean I'm into Event Leviathan. I feel like he has a plan. Like I mean I'm mad at Event Leviathan because of the Action Comics art change, but I can't change that. I know
Oh,
that they wanted somebody who looks like Alex Maleev, but it's just not very good. So, um,
I feel bad for you
but
because he's always following you on books that you like.
not really though. Like at least he's not on Immortal Hulk.
Oh,
I'm literally knocking on wood right now. I'm like, God no. I shouldn't be so mean. And his issue wasn't even that bad, but it was like when you're going from Steve Epting to that, like it is just not the same. But in terms of other DC books with really good art, Naomi,
oh
I
yeah.
love Jamal Campbell. Jamal Campbell is a superstar. I'm really glad that he's on a book that, I mean, I don't know what sales are like, but I hope that it sells really well in trade. I'm glad that they are pretty committed to keeping him like on this book because I know that I think Naomi 2 comes out probably at the beginning of next year. I'm so excited for his Young Animal book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That book
That
sounds amazing.
oof, and that art was, ooh, God, it looks so good. And then I can't believe we've gone this long. We have not talked about Green Lantern. Are you reading Green Lantern?
Are you gonna be mad at me if I say no?
No, but you should because it's crazy. I love it.
I read the first issue and I was just like, the first issue to me felt like Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp were working on two different comics. And I don't know why. I was just like reading this and I have very strong thoughts on Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison for me, he's either one of my absolute favorite writers in the history of comics or somebody that I'm just like, what am I reading? When I read We 3, I'm like, this guy is a genius. Like somebody beyond compare. But then when I read Green Lantern, I'm like, what is this? What is this? I don't know.
No, I dig it so much. They just put out the first trade, so
I'll get it. I'll get it.
you should check out the full first arc. I mean, it is really, really weird. But the thing is, like, you know what books have not been weird for a while?
Green
Green
Lantern.
Lantern books.
Yeah.
They were not weird. Like, they really fell into some, like, extremely traditional
Space
fantasy
Cop.
superhero storytelling, exactly, space opera stuff. Like, Morrison is doing some wacky stuff, and Liam Sharp is flexing so hard. It's so fun. And, like, the thing is, like, Liam Sharp came in through, like, I mean, I think he was UK and stuff, but, like, his early Marvel stuff is so, like, that very 90s, hyper exaggerated. And, like, it's cool to see, like, how he still holds on to elements of that while being able to really create some like truly spectacular art on that book. Like there are the alien locales and some of his designs are just out of this world. I love it.
It feels like it should come with like a soundtrack from like some sort of 70s psych rock band or something like that.
Absolutely. There's a Spotify playlist, I'm sure.
I'm sure that there is. No, I'll go and try it. I mean, like that's the thing is or excuse me, Morrison is somebody that you really can't just take one bite of the apple with because it's maybe it's not going to work out in the long run. Like, Final Crisis, like I was really excited about that. And I honestly cannot stand Final Crisis. I'm one of those people, but
it's a mess.
It's a mess. And, but at the same time, it's like, sometimes there's those books that Morrison does where at first I'm not feeling it, but then it comes around and I love it. And so I'll definitely go back and check it out. But it's just, there was something about it that just like didn't jive with me. But at the same time, wasn't there like some sort of like space Jesus or something like that in one of the stories?
God, it's like I don't want to spoil it. It's really fun. There's like he encounters a being that is very similar to traditional images of a Christian God.
Yeah.
But yeah, I won't say anything else. Yes, that is a very, very fun issue. That one is yeah, that's kind of like a climate change issue as well. So
I am a little surprised. I don't feel like the conversation around a Grant Morrison, like I don't feel like the conversation's been as loud around the Grant Morrison Green Lantern series as I expected, because it is Grant Morrison on Green Lantern, and that's a big pairing. And I wonder if it's partially just because it is really weird, and maybe it's like some of like the traditional DC superhero fans maybe aren't feeling it necessarily. I don't know.
That's weird, and it's not connected to anything else. I literally have no idea how this book connects to the larger DC universe, and I love that. I don't want it to connect to anything else. If we can keep it separate, let's keep them separate. Like, but at the same time, fans want the thing that is defining what the line is. Heroes in Crisis sold incredibly well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, of course it was. It was Tom King on this big book that has the word crisis in the title.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, that book, it's critic proof. Like, it didn't matter. People are going to buy it no matter what. People are going to buy these 7 million Joker books that are coming out.
Oh, my God. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up. I actually counted it last night. Do you want to know a fun fact about Black Label? 7 of the first 11 actual Black Label imprint books feature the Joker or Harley Quinn as a cast member, and that's a lot of the Joker and Harley Quinn. And I'm really excited about like the question. I mean, you get Sienkiewicz and you get Dennis Cowan working with Jeff Lemire on that. Like that's amazing. And honestly, like I think the Killer Smile, Joker Killer Smile from Lemire and Sorrentino, especially given the fact that it's not going to cost us any pace for Gideon Falls, is a really like that's a great fit. And I think they're going to do some really exciting things. But there's a certain point. I mean, like this is maybe comic book blasphemy, but I'm not that big of a Joker fan. Like, I don't need 3 Jokers. I'm fine with one, and I need less of them.
I only like one Joker, and it's Mark Hamill. Like, honestly, I guess I like Jack Nicholson fine, but, like, that Mark Hamill Joker is my ideal Joker. Like, he's funny. Like, the thing is, I think the Joker needs to be funny, and a lot of the time, he is not. He's sociopath, crazy serial killer dude. Mm-hmm. So, like... Ugh, God, I'm not excited for, I don't think, any of them. Not excited for 3 Jokers. Killer Smile, no thank you. Honestly, I like Andrea Sorrentino so much, but and I mean I like Jeff Lemire in general, but like a Jeff Lemire Joker book I would not seek out in any way. Mm-hmm. Not because it's him, but just because it's not he's not it. Who would I read a Joker book by? John Allison.
Oh, yeah.
His Joker book. I would read John Allison and Max Aaron doing a Joker book. Like, I would read Roger Langridge's Joker book. Like, I want to read Seth's Joker book. I do not want to read a superhero Joker book at this point. Like, give me, like, something fun that isn't going to be the exact same shit over and over again. Because... I feel like all these stories are just going to be variations on the exact same story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just can't do it. Like, I would read, did you read the Bizarro book that was part of DCU? It was like a kid's book. Gustavo
Oh, I
Duarte did the
didn't
art on
know.
it. Like, I would read that book, that creative team doing a Joker book. Like, it just,
You want something
I,
different.
I want something different, and I've basically no hope in any of these. Although at the same time, it's like I really liked Last Night on Earth or whatever. That's what it called. That's what it's
Yeah,
called, right?
last night on Earth, yeah.
Yeah, like that was really freaking cool.
Yeah.
So who knows? But like, I'm probably not going to check out this. There's the Joker and Harley one. That's what Cami Garcia and what, Nico Swayan and
Yeah.
somebody else. Like, no, I don't. I don't really want to read any Joker and Harley stories at this point. Although I did. This is a different. We'll jump into this, I'm sure. But I did like the Harley Quinn Breaking Glass book for DC Inc. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
far and away the best of their books. Um,
The funny thing about all the Black Label like Joker and Harley books that were announced is like it got to a point where I honestly thought I was reading the same press release when when I was reading one of the announcements for one of the Harley books, and I was just like, wait, is this the same book I read about the other day, or is this a different one? Did they just change the name of it? What's going on here? And I know that they're different, and I know that they're going to have like their takes and everything like that because there's a lot of talented creators working on it, and there's smart people editing it. But at the same time, I was just like, this feels so similar, and I really like. I want. And I think we're gonna get this, but I want more from Black Label because the idea of Black Label is good, but I feel like a lot of the usages of the mature stuff so far have been really like low hanging fruit and not really that challenging from a storytelling standpoint. And like Last Night on Earth, I really liked because it really felt like a unique story. And the funny the irony of that is I actually didn't I dropped Snyder and Capullo's Batman run like very early on with it, and I was not a big fan of it, but I loved Last Night on Earth, and I'm excited for more of it. But it was like the first one where I was like, okay, this is doing something that feels like different and maybe not obvious or something like that.
I've told you to read Super Heavy, right?
Yeah, Super Heavy the Batman arc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You read it or no? Because
I have not.
it's so good. That's Jim Gordon as Mecha Suit Batman. It's so good. I love Super Heavy. It's like that might be my favorite Snyder Capullo story. That's when they just go balls to the wall, crazy action.
That is one
That's a
line in
fun
the
one.
sand with us, though. Is like I feel like you really enjoyed their brand of insanity. Like I didn't really like Metal. Metal, like to me, when I was reading it, I was just like, this is just like insane. But I think you read that and you're like, this is just insane.
Yeah, basically.
Uh,
Batmanium.
I mean, like, I think you were actually the one who told me some of like what was happening in the story, and I was like, okay, I have to read this just because that sounds insane. And I was like, this doesn't work for me. But well, let's talk about the artists formerly known as Ink and Kids, really, or Ink and Zoom now. Now that they're DC and DC Kids, um, have those impressed you? I mean, as a whole, have you found them to be? I don't know. Do they work for you?
As a whole, I would give it like a C plus.
Yeah.
So I think that they launched on. They had a really kind of lackluster launch.
They had Mira,
Like
and then they had
Mira and the Adventures of the Super Sons,
right.
which Adventures of Super Sons just looks pretty ugly. Like it has almost like Comic Sans lettering that is just yeah, not good. But like I'm not the right audience though for that. Like the thing is, the kids ones are kind of difficult to gauge because I'm not a kid. I can judge it on like what I think is a good comic, but like a kid doesn't have those like qualifications in their head at all, and I'm sure a kid will probably like Adventures of the Super Sons, but like for me personally, it didn't make me like super thrilled, and kind of the same with Mira. Mira was just so by the numbers, and like I like Stephen Byrne, but the art in that was just really flat. Like a lot of the DC ink books are like kind of monochrome,
Mm-hmm.
where it'll be like one color and then like maybe an accent color or something. And um, with Stephen Byrne, it's interesting because I don't think that his line work is the strongest element. It's the way that he colors his line work as well, because
Mm-hmm.
he colors himself. So like when you get rid of that, it kind of just flattened it out. And like I would have liked to see what he could have done if he colored kind of like an underwater environment or something. But I mean, that's me asking for a book that doesn't exist. And so yeah, I didn't read the Catwoman Under the Moon book, so I can't say if that's any good or not. Um, but I read Raven, and I thought that was solid. I mean, I was really excited to see Gabriel Piccolo doing like DC work because his fan art is so awesome.
It's incredible.
And like it's very solid. Kevin Garcia is definitely one of the better novelists turned comic writers. She has a little bit better handle of the form. Doesn't lean too hard on narration, stuff like that. But the Breaking Glass, the Harley Quinn one, was really good. Like,
Who did that one?
It's crazy good. It's not out yet. It's Mariko Tamaki and Steve Pugh.
Oh, there you go.
And Steve Pugh, beast mode, god mode, kills every page. It's crazy.
He's had a really good few years. I mean, like
Yeah.
his stuff on the Flintstones was amazing.
So did you ever read? He did an Image book. I'm sure you didn't read it, God. He did an Image book maybe like 12 years ago or something, but he like did all the art for it, including like colors, and it had this almost like CG kind of like sheen to it. Like he colors himself on this book too, and there's times when it has like this almost like hyper realism, but then it goes into almost like Spider-Verse levels of like super contrast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gorgeous book. I mean, it's Mariko Tamaki. She knows how to write a comic book. And like the story was really solid. I mean, it's like a very queer story, and like it's kind of all about like gentrification.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good.
Yeah.
A lot. So I mean, the fact is, I admire the initiative more than anything, and I appreciate that these are original graphic novels that are what, $12,
Mm-hmm.
$14 a pop, maybe. I'm hoping they're 12. Let me check really quickly. But like, I think that they are solid. I wish that they had come out of the gate with their best.
Right.
But at the same time, like, the whole initiative is changing. So it's like, okay.
Well, I mean, they've announced like a metric ton of books.
So many.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there must be like 30 books between the two of them over the next year and a half. And like, so they're still coming. They're just now DC kids and part of the DC line. I mean, like, look at Superman Smashes the Klan. Is that what it's called? The Gene Luen Yang and Guri Huru book. I mean, that's going to be a great book. I have to admit, though, like 3 $9.99 issues was a bit of a turnoff for me. That's like, I mean, unless it's like one hell of a square bound book, it is, I don't know. I just don't know why I don't go trade at that point. But it's, I don't know. There's something that throws me off a little bit about it, is like, ideally every kid's book, right, is going to be something that's going to work for kind of everyone. Like you look at something like Raina Telgemeier. Like Raina Telgemeier works for everybody because it's kind of universal themes, and it's something that like you can read and still enjoy. Like you read Kazu Kibuishi and you're going to enjoy it because he approaches it with respect to all audiences. And I do feel like, from what I understand, and I've not read every single book, but it seems like to a certain degree, at least the Zoom stuff might be edging a little bit more on the kiddie side than perhaps they aim for, or at least like what they were kind of pitching it as. And maybe I'm just mistaken on that, but I don't know. I'm with you. I'm kind of more glad it exists than impressed so far. And I mean, honestly, like not even just like leading with your best. I'm a little surprised that you kick off your line with Mira and Super Sons, like, which are two, audiences, or two characters or character groups that don't have a lot of cachet in the larger world. Like no kids, like man, I mean, very few kids. Excuse me. I'm sure there are kids who saw Aquaman and are all about Mera, but at the same time, like you would think that they would lead with something that was a bit more connective to that audience. But
Yeah, totally.
well, I just have a few more things to go over. First off, I want to talk about Squirrel Girl. It's ending soon. You and I are both big fans. It's kind of a weird time for books that are just like purely enjoyable, because I feel like we're losing a few of them at the same time. Like Squirrel Girl and Giant Days leaving at basically the same time is genuinely like heartbreaking for me, because those are two of the books that I enjoy more than anything. How do you, I mean, you were the one who wrote the article announcing its choice to depart. How do you feel about Squirrel Girl going out on its own volition?
I mean, I love it. I don't love that it's gone, but I love that they're ending it when they want to end it. Like, that's the dream. They did 50 issues of a Squirrel Girl book. Like, they accomplished what they wanted to do. They created this book that is reaching thousands and thousands of comic readers. I mean, if these books are in libraries, we have no real idea how many kids are reading these Squirrel Girl books.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that it's a shit ton. So, no, I love it. It's been a great book from kind of beginning to end. It's always just had this like super pleasant energy to it. And the thing is, Squirrel Girl's like an incredible value in terms of superhero comics. If you buy a kid a Squirrel Girl trade, they're going to be reading that trade for a while.
Yeah,
like this is not 6 issues of Bendis Spider-Man that they're going to burn through in 1 hour. Like, this is a dense book, and it was I believe it was Tegan O'Neill mentioned this on Twitter, but just being like, the popularity of Squirrel Girl is probably partially due to parents seeing how long it takes their kids to read this comic compared to other comics, and seeing that it's actually like it makes it feel like you're getting more bang for your buck.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I usually read Squirrel Girl issues a couple weeks after they come out, because they kind of require me to spend a little bit more time. And
Yeah.
On the Wednesday, I'm burning through the big stuff, and I kind of know Squirrel Girl is going to be consistently great. I have no pressure to write about it because I've written about it a billion times. So, like, yeah, it's really good. I'm glad that they're just ending it when they want to do it. Very excited to see what they do next. I mean, I assume that Ryan North is probably going to do something creator owned. I mean, they can kind of go wherever. Derek Charm is working on, I feel like, 1,000 books at any given time. So
he's so fast. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So like, I'm just pretty happy with it. That book was a gift, and now it's done. And you know what? Books end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd prefer it's one of the few books where I'm like, if you I was even hesitant. Like, I like Derek Charm, but having Erica Henderson switch off the book was a little nervy for me. I wasn't totally sure as to how much I would love it, but Charm stepped in perfectly. It was fantastic. And I don't know if that's the type of book that you would want to continue on. It's kind of like, I interviewed you for my Next Wave piece. It's like trying to follow something like Next Wave or following something like Squirrel Girl is going to put a lot of pressure on you, because like the voice of Ryan North in that book is like you I don't know, it's like you can't even separate the two of them. Like, just even the idea of somebody approaching it without footnotes is like kind of hard to imagine. But then if you try to do footnotes, then you just seem like you're trying to imitate it, and it's like you don't want to be a cover band, right?
I predict that we'll have a new Squirrel Girl book in like 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, that's I mean, the character has gotten really popular. Do you read it in print?
Yeah.
Do you read the letters column ever?
I don't. I look through it, but I do not read the letters. No.
So many kids, like so many parents or kids, sending in pictures of like the joy that this character brings to their children is. I mean, it's like astonishing. It's like Squirrel Girl really connects with younger readers, and like in the funny thing is like going back to what we were talking about with Ink and Zoom. Like Squirrel Girl is like there's some dense stuff in it. And like a lot of kids are not that interested in computer science, to be honest. And yet it respects the audience in such a way that I think that it's become a universal book for whoever reads it. Like it's hard for me to imagine somebody that wouldn't kind of like find something to enjoy in that book.
Yeah, just total delight.
Yeah.
Loved it. Like, I'm sad to see it go, I guess, but you know what? Like, at least Runaways is still going, so hey, small victory.
And Andres Genele, my God, I don't know how I don't know how he's doing it. I did want to say one thing about the length of the length of the read for Squirrel Girl. It's like the only comic I have to plan when I read it.
Yeah.
Because like I normally read at night before I go to bed, and it's like I have to like set time. I mean, like I can't read it in the first wave. Well, just two more questions. One, I don't know if this has affected you. You mentioned how many comics are being made today as like a thing. DC has dialed back their line considerably. Like not this month, but the month before. I think they only published something. I mean, they've been publishing like 50 or 60 books, which is a lot, but like not that many. Marvel's been like over 100. Like this month they were 108. The last month, or June they were 108, and May they were 118. Does that like affect you in any way, or do you feel like more choice the better?
I mean, I've just gotten pretty selective about what I read. Like in terms of new series, try to give stuff first issue a chance, but if I'm not feeling it, it's real easy for me not to read the second one.
Yeah.
But like I read a lot of it. And it's nice because it is a little easier to keep up with DC stuff, but at the same time, I feel like I read pretty much kind of an equal amount from both of them, which when you think about how Marvel is publishing twice the amount, that kind of says something.
Yeah.
Like it says that I'm not reading 75% of Marvel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm only reading a certain percentage, but I wouldn't say that I'm not reading 75%. But maybe there's a lot of shit out there.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, like, there's just like I'm not really reading the slot books right now. I fell way behind. I'm not reading Spider-Man. Like I'm reading Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, but I'm not really reading anything adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess I'll get back into Venom now that like Donny Cates is back on it, but I dropped it for the War of the Realms tie-in.
I did too.
And like trying to think about other aspects of Marvel right now. Well, things are going to change a lot with X-Men because I mean I wasn't buying any X-Men books.
Mm-hmm.
Like Age of X-Men, I didn't need to read that. I'll read that on Marvel Unlimited in 6 months.
Yeah.
Like there's no rush for me to get to that. So, yeah, I mean, granted, I like having the choice, but the choice doesn't mean anything if I'm not interested in the creative teams. I'd much rather see a better curated line with fewer titles.
Yeah. And there's actually a fair amount of books. I mean, I'm reading more Marvel than I have in a long time, but part of that is at least as part of a volume proposition. There's just so much out there. But there's also a lot of books when I look at, and I just honestly don't really know who the audience is for. And that's kind of tough. I mean, it's like, man, let's just say that there is a 5-week event that was announced just this week that I looked at and I was just like, I don't know who's going to buy this comic. Like it's, I'm just gonna say it's called Contagion. Did you read anything about it?
Oh.
It's like Ed Brisson, and it's like 5 different rotating artists, and it's about like street level heroes fighting against some sort of like contagion outbreak of some sort of like disastrous. I don't know. It's like an outbreak meets.
I mean, those happen all the time, though, and like those are always whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of the last time I read one of those that was like, oh my God, you have to read this. You have to read this 3-issue miniseries or whatever, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, I don't know why they do these things, but then there's another part of me that like has a very soft spot in my heart for Fred Van Lent and Hefty Paulo's Taskmaster 4-issue miniseries from a few years ago. So it's like sometimes I really like the random, and other times I don't. But well, okay. Besides everything we talked about, is there anything else on the horizon you're excited about? What is making Oliver excited about superhero comics on the horizon?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, of course, Hickman's X-Men. Super stoked for that. I'm very excited for Valkyrie. The little story that they had in War of the Realms Omega was gorgeous. I really like Cafu, and of course
Yeah.
Al Ewing writing that. So like that looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. Um, I'm excited to see where this Captain America storyline goes. I feel like they're setting him up to kind of be Nomad again.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm excited to see what Captain America is like in like a election year
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like Coates might go really hard on that book.
Oh yeah.
So that's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, always excited for Immortal Hulk. Ready to see She-Hulk get in there because that's coming. Like she popped up in that issue 7 when he fought the Avengers, but I think that there's quite a bit of connectivity that we'll see happening with Avengers and Immortal Hulk specifically. I think that all the stuff that's going on with Jen is going to play in there.
Mm-hmm.
Silver Surfer Black, so into that. I mean, I'm pretty excited to see. I'm not excited for Absolute Carnage at all.
No.
Kind of. I mean, shock. I'm not excited for the Carnage event. But like, I'm pretty stoked to see like where Guardians of the Galaxy goes. Like, I'm very excited for Kate's and the cosmic aspect of Marvel. I'm liking Teeny Howard's Thanos miniseries right now.
Mm-hmm.
She's a Marvel exclusive now,
Mm-hmm.
so excited to see what she will be doing. Jimmy Olsen, ooh, Jimmy Olsen, God, you're gonna have such a good time. I
I'm
can't wait
so
for you to read it.
envious. I'm so envious. I gotta ask you really quick. Was the cat in the Leviathan
It's
Rising?
totally Dexter.
It
It
was
had to be
Dexter.
Dexter.
Oh my
It
god.
was so stupid. I loved it.
Oh god. It was. I mean, like that. I felt like that was such like a fraction thing to do to
Dexter.
randomly bring in Dexter into like this comic, but it was so perfect.
To just like vomit for an entire page and like that's it. Bye. Gosh, so good. A lot of fun. Really excited to see where Lois Lane
Yeah,
goes. I'm like, I don't love Perkins, but like,
I think he
fine
fits.
enough with him. I've seen him for, yeah, exactly. I've seen his art for so long. Oh, I don't know if you read Flash. Are you reading Flash?
I'm reading it in trade. I have to admit, it's part. I have a trade stack up right now, and I'm
Yeah.
behind.
So
Year one looks really good, and I really like Howard Porter is crazy underrated.
yeah, that's the thing. So like, don't I haven't really been reading it, but I decided to give Year One a chance. It's Howard Porter, 16 panel grid, and it is nice.
Yeah.
It is a really, really nice looking book. Like Howard Porter's kind of awesome. Like I tweeted out like, imagine if he had drawn, if the current Howard Porter had done those Grant Morrison Justice League issues, because they would have been just like so incredible.
Young David Harper still has great fondness for those Howard Porter and Grant Morrison issues.
God, some really messy faces.
I want to say one thing before we go about Coates and Kates, because those two, like on Guardian or on Captain America and Guardians in specific, like the thing I really appreciate about them is like how they're using continuity. Like Coates is like as close to a spiritual follow up to Brubaker's stuff as we've ever gotten, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And Kate's is the same thing for like the DNA, like Giffen Annihilation, like that whole theater of that whole channel of cosmic books. And it's like it's going back to something that I think longtime readers have a lot of fondness for, and newer readers would probably appreciate because of like the way that they approach the stories, but they still feel very much like their own flavor. And I think that's exactly what I want out of my superhero comics, is to like not pay respect to the past, work off the past, but still do your own thing. And I think Coates and Kates are doing a really good job at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, jumping off of that, really, really excited to see what goes on with the Legion.
Oh yeah.
Like I've been like just been very curious to see what goes on, because for a while it seemed like Jeff Johns was going to be handling the Legion, and well, we didn't even talk about Jeff Johns.
We didn't even talk about Doomsday Clock, your great love.
My love, Doomsday Clock. go read my article on Doomsday Clock, everyone, because we're not talking about it here. Unless you want to go on a Doomsday Clock diversion.
Well, Jeff Johns is an entirely different can of worms. Are we getting Killing Zone? When is that happening? I thought Killing Zone was a thing. I don't know.
I don't think after this year, I don't think that's happening anymore. No, in the DC area, Legion of Superheroes has me really, really, really excited. But like in terms of like the comic that I just like cannot wait for, flash forward, Scott Lobdell.
I hate you. I hate
you. I just like had to clench my fingers so that I wouldn't start laughing beforehand. God, I'm an asshole. Sorry.
Oh God. Okay. This is horrible. Now I feel bad because we're gonna end on.
We're not gonna end on that note.
Wally West torture. No, my boy Wally West. Hey, at least I got a few issues of Patrick Gleason drawing Bart Allen, because man, that guy could draw the hell out of Young Justice. Woo! I love it.
Patrick Gleason. I mean, it sucks because I don't want to read him on Amazing Spider-Man, but
did you see that first piece by him?
I did. Yeah,
I think it was Dave Stewart coloring it. Man, he is so good. Yeah. I love Patrick Gleason. Like, I think he is a phenomenal superhero artist, and he has just a ton of life and everything, and a ton of life to his work. And I'm excited. I don't know. I actually like Spencer's Spider-Man run. I mean, the Craven. There was a Craven arc that just didn't work for me, but everything else has been really solid. I don't know. I mean, your mileage may vary with Spencer. He's very good. I don't know. Polarizing. Let's say polarizing.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Craven, I'm mad that he backtracked on Squirrel Girl. I mean, of course, that wasn't a status quo that was ever going to stay. But, like, it should have. And, I'm like, that's my main issue with Spencer. Like, not even going with all of the
other stuff,
Nazi Cap stuff or whatever. Like, this is actually like a Twitter conversation we had because I was complaining about Maria Hill and his Captain America issues, like, really early on. And I was like, basically, he's just erased all of the character development that happened in Secret Avengers, because it happened right after Secret Avengers, which he had co-written a Secret Avengers volume right beforehand, and then Alice Scott did it. But like, he had talked about like consistency and like valuing like a consistency of character more than like progression of character. So it's like making sure this character kind of goes back to like what the version is that people would know. Mm-hmm. So like with Maria Hill, it turns her back into kind of just this, like spy in the sky watching everybody, paranoid. And then Craven has to go back and be the hunter or whatever. And it's like, that's just not interesting to me. Like, if we're moving characters forward, let's actually be committed to making that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. But this is a whole different can of worms. We're going to open it next year in Superhero State of the Union 5. But Oliver, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been fun.
Always a great time. Also, very excited for Wildcats.
Oh yeah, Wildcats.
Gotta throw it in there. Oh, like what's getting us excited? Come on, let's end on a positive note. Wildcats, yo.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with the AV Club's Oliver Sava. You can find him on Twitter at Oliver Sava and his work at the AV Club. As a heads up, Off Panel is once again brought to you by Sketch.com. Check out the new version of the site and consider subscribing for access to all of the site's content and its members-only forum. If you're a fan of Off Panel, make sure to check it out on Patreon. If you back the show on there, you not only support it, but you get early access to each week's podcast, access to weekly content, and more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Off Panel on iTunes or Spotify and give the show a rating or review while you're at it. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by liking it on Facebook at /Sketched, that's SKTCHD, following on Twitter at @SketchComic, or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Nathan House, Litwin Studios, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Troy Jeffrey Allen, Leona Kingus, Keegan Ray, Milton Lawson, Wesley Giff, Sean Kirkham, Harry Small, Alistair Ross, Julio Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Connor Farner, Vita Ayala, JDC and Mac Gagnon, Aditya Bidikar, Tara Ferguson, Dave Slusher, Kieran Mark Antonio, WQ Comics, Kill, Kokachi, Phil White, Ben Becker, Sean Pinillo, Ken Heidelman, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, Nick Michelin, David Kelly, Robert Wilson IV, Nick Polito, Owen McCready, Brendan Fletcher, Gary Maloney, Jonathan Nilsson, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Adam Bogert, Xavier Files, Maria Schweitzer, Matthew Taylor, Tyler Turner, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Ira James Udaskin, Modern Magic Stories, Nick Call, Bobby Angus, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Phil Nall, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Chang, Benjamin Shipper, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Greg Rucka, Adam Highfill, Nicholas Gardner, Andrew Corrigan, Fiona Staples, Chris O'Halloran, Mark Abnett, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert Niccolo, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Off-Panel's theme song just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.